Greetings, ladies and laddies, and welcome back to another episode of Brink of Arts eBay Rescue. In the latest episode, 1 week ago, we rescued a squad of soul drinkers and tried out a lot of different and exciting techniques with great success. With them came a Chaplan, whom I left out last time, because he would have surely doubled the length of the video. But now, it's his time to shine. Before we begin, let me just quickly tell you about an epiphany I had. Remember the ENC that were painted on each and every Terminator? Well, as it turns out, there is a Space Marine chapter called the Emperor's Children. And what do you know, their color combination is purple and white. So, well, now we know what the ENC stood for. One of my friends even suggested Emperor's Children as possibility for the abbreviation, but I dismissed him, not knowing that there was an actual chapter named the Emperor's Children. Not gonna lie, I would say sorry for wrongly assigning them, but oh well, they're also a traitor legion, and I don't apologize to heretics. Anyway, let's get back to the Soul Drinkers Chaplan. The Chaplan is painted in their classic black color scheme, but features a few spots of purple to tie him together with his Soul Drinker comrades. Right off the bat, a feature that immediately distinguishes him from his comrades though, is the fact that he is made out of tin instead of plastic, which is amazing regarding the level of quality and detail the mini features. Unfortunately, tin models are known for their easily chipped paint, and this one is no exception.
What are those?
They're called my sandals.
Speaking of the pre-owner's paint shop, the model suffers from all the same problems the other Soul Drinkers do. The trims are a bit wonky, the Parchments writing is way too thick, but I can clearly see improvement with the ornaments, which have way less paint on them as on the Terminators before. Yet this mini also shows new problems. The Parchments show a lot of droplets, often occurring when paint is thinned too much with water, and also have a very glossy finish, which is the opposite of what I would go for with Parchments. The paint job also has a quite messy appearance, especially showing on the Chaplan's helmet, overloading the model with distractions even further. Apart from that, I think the model is painted quite alright, definitely tabletop standard. The pre-owner might have been an amateur, but they were clearly invested and passionate about what they were doing, and I am very eager to transform this model into something that does him justice. I started with the armor, cleaning it up with a fresh base coat of Abaddon Black to get rid of the wonky trims and spots of spilled or chipped paint. Immediately, the eye has an easier time defining the model's shapes and contours as we got rid of the noise more and more. Okay, let's bring some action into the mix. I used the direct light shining from my lamp as reference while putting down Skavenblight Dinge everywhere where I wanted to make an impression of light reflecting from the armor. After every highlight was planned out, I started with the wet blending. When I painted the other Terminators last week, this was something I was really anxious about, but this time I was way more confident in what I was doing. Training makes perfect, people. After the wet blending though, I found the highlights too subtle and not as eye-catching as I wanted them to be. So I took Administratum Grey and gave the already blended reflexes another brighter stripe in the middle for some extra accentuation. Of course, these stripes had to be wet blended too, so I took Skavenblight Dinge and Abaddon Black again to be able to properly blend all three colors together. This was quite complicated, especially trying to keep the integrity of the contrast from the deep black to the almost white grey. Effectively wet blending the model twice took a whole lot of extra time. However, I like the end result a lot better than the former wet blending, and the armor now makes a way shinier impression. Nice. Having Administratum Grey out already, I immediately went on to the edge highlighting and also painted the toes of his little feet that way. But I quickly noticed that the color was too bright for the overall mini, so I painted it over with Skavenblight Dinge. Alright, next Just as with the other Terminators, the Chaplan gets his trims back. The original trims were some sort of medium grey, but I chose the very bright Ulfwan grey for the overhaul because I wanted to go for a starker contrast and also wanted the trims to match up with the other Terminators. This task was finished rather quickly because the Chaplan's armor only features 1 tasset instead of 4, so we can move on to reinforce the white with white scar everywhere where the reflexes on the armor meet the trims for a slightly more realistic lighting effect. Having finished the trims, I turned my attention to the metal rods on the armor and began to clean them up with lead belcher. After the simple cleanup, I took Iron Breaker and applied it on all the strongly lit areas for another subtle lighting effect. Moving on to the purple parts, I gave all of them a new base coat with Zeroy's purple, so they'd match up with the other Soul Drinkers. The larger areas like the pauldrons and the Besagu even got some wet blended light reflexes with Genestealer purple. After that, I edge highlighted the gauntlets. None of the other purple bits really needed, but the finely casted gauntlets really profit from it, bringing especially their fingers back to show. Now we just need to give the Besagu its trims. I actually slipped while painting and left a huge stain of white on the purple Besagu, but instead of painting the wet blended purple meticulously back on, I mirrored the effect on the other side to make it look intentional. So, after that, we can move on to the golden ornaments. Not like they really needed much fixing, but I still wanted to use a little bit of Nuln Oil to knock back the extremely bright metallic shine. After the wash had enough time to thoroughly dry, I took a small brush and made the details pop again by carefully picking them out with Gehenna's Gold. Having most of the gold now sorted, I turned my attention to the Parchments, which glossiness and messy look is really the only thing left that's making this model look bad. I first gave them 2 coats of Steel Legion drab and I can't express how satisfying that was. The model just looks so much cleaner already. Okay, moving on, I gave the Parchments a very heavy wash with a Grux Earthshade. We don't need to worry about it pulling too much in the recesses or creating tight marks, for we will dry brush them shortly, bringing back all of their contours and details. Dry brushing is always very messy, and even though I tried my best to avoid any of the other parts, I couldn't completely prevent the paint from touching some of the armor. But no worries, we can easily fix that by carefully painting Abaddon Black over it. Alright, now we can move on to highlighting the edges and folds with fine lines of Chape Beau. Wait. I got a little overexcited apparently and started painting the writing before having the Parchments edge highlighted. Luckily, I noticed my mistakes soon enough. Fuck. Okay, now I highlighted the Parchments with fine lines of Chape Beau, which took quite a while because the Chaplan is just absolutely covered in parchments. After that was taken care of, I painted some very fine black lines with the very tip of my detail brush to simulate some kind of saintly writing. The massive space I had allowed me to write all kinds of stuff, like the link to my Instagram profile or my email address if some true devotees had any requests for minis they'd like to see me paint. Apart from that, I also freehanded the blazon of the Soul Drinkers on the big, smooth parchment on his shoulder. Having the paper ready, I moved on to the seals and fixed them up with Word Bearer's Red, before washing them with Karabog Crimson and finishing them off with highlights of Mephiston Red. Alright, now we can pay his charms and trinkets some attention. I fixed the chains and the skull on his back with Ironbreaker and the other odds and ends with Gehenna's Gold. After that, I washed the golden trinkets with Agrux Earthshade and the silver trinkets with Nuln Oil. Great! Having all the details on the armor done, we can move on to the Chaplan's weaponry, starting with its Crozius Arcanum. Because the mace didn't really need any fixing, it absolutely could have been enough to just wash it with Null oil, but I thought it would be quite boring. So I decided to paint it like it was glowing with energy, and here comes a quick comment about this project in general. Because I said in the previous video that this video would come out only a week later, I was in a serious rush, as you might have already noticed. This led to some stupid decision making in terms of painting the model, very much affecting the look of the Crucius Arcanum's energy, for example. Apart from the fact that I should have painted the recesses of the cable to simulate the glow building up on the inside rather than the outside, I painted it in various blue colors, not following the scheme for the energy on his comrades' weapons. In hindsight, this actually quite annoys me, because I would have thought about it more if I had given myself just a little more time. So, in conclusion, I'm not going to rush any other projects in the future, and as a note for us all, every paint job takes the time that it takes, and if you start rushing a project, mistakes like these are inevitable. Okay, after all that ranting, we are finished painting the Crucius. It's simple, but quite effective, and even though it doesn't match with the other energy weapons, I'm still content with it. Moving on, his ranged weapon, the Kit-Bashed Stormbolter, is also quite nicely done and didn't really need much fixing. But I couldn't prevent myself from adding a bit of color and straightening the golden trims. We're almost at the finishing line and can finally fix something that was really annoying me from the start. Can you guess it? Come on, guess. Ah, that's right. The pouches. Having a solid base coat, I focused mainly on giving them a worn, weathered look, starting with some highlighting using Mounfang Brown, over to Steel Legion Drab and finishing it up with a few fine streaks of sandy dust. Great! Ah, finally. Okay, but seriously, let's fix his helmet. Extremely satisfying, I used sandy dust cleaning the helmet, avoiding the eyes and nostril. For some reason I thought it'd be cool to try something bold, so I took Apothecary White and washed the helmet with it, which looked absolutely rubbish. Seriously, what was I thinking? Gaining my sanity back, I washed it with Agrax Earthshade. I used a bit too much for my liking, so I just wiped it away with my thing. Oh shit. Okay, no need to panic. I was easily able to fix it with some sandy dust and also used that for the highlights to make the overall look more coherent. After waiting for everything to thoroughly dry, I lightly dry brushed the helmet with Ushapti Bone, and with that, we are done. I think the Chaplan looks great. We were able to give him some serious upgrades and yet cleaned him up so well that even though he features more details than before, the eye is not overloaded with information. It was quite a fun model to paint, and I am definitely looking forward to painting more equally detailed models in the near future. I really hope you enjoyed the video and maybe even recommend it to a friend who might like it too. And if you didn't, please feel free to recommend it to your enemies. In the next video, I will paint some uniquely kit-bashed Elder Farseers I got from eBay. And if you would like to see their paint job, please consider subscribing. For there are still a lot of models out there that could use some more love and care, and I am looking forward to seeing you again in my next video. Until then, take care. The pre-owner might have been an amateur, but they were clearly invested and passionate about what they were doing, and I am very eager to transform this After the wash had enough time to thoroughly dry, I took a small brush and made the details pop again by carefully picking them out with Gehenna's Gold. Fuck, are you serious? Does one have it in the audio?